Emma sat in Dr. Reeves' office, watching rain streak down the window. The therapist's question hung in the air between them. "You've mentioned your pattern of relationships several times now," Dr. Reeves said gently. "Have you considered why you're drawn to these particular men?" Emma's fingers twisted in her lap. At 34, she was successful in her career as an architectural designer, respected by colleagues, financially independent. Yet her personal life was a revolving door of relationships with men who were charismatic but ultimately destructive. Men who embodied what Jung might call aspects of the dark masculine. "I don't know," she admitted. "It's like there's something compelling about them I can't resist, even when I know better." Dr. Reeves nodded. Carl Jung had a fascinating perspective on this. He believed we're often drawn to people who embody qualities we've repressed in ourselves, our shadow. He also suggested women might be attracted to manifestations of their own internal masculine energy, what he called the animus. "So I'm attracted to these men because they represent something in me?" Emma asked skeptically. "Perhaps parts of yourself you haven't acknowledged," Dr. Reeves replied. Jung would say we're often drawn to what we need to integrate, even if that integration comes through difficult experiences. As Emma left the session, the concept followed her into the rain-slicked streets. Could Jung's theories explain her attraction to men who embodied qualities she both feared and secretly admired? Was she seeking something beyond the men themselves, something within her own psyche? Emma spent the weekend researching Jung's concepts, spreading books across her apartment floor. His ideas about the collective unconscious, archetypes, the shadow and the animus fascinated her. She began journaling about her past relationships, looking for patterns. There was Michael, the brilliant but emotionally unavailable entrepreneur; James, the charismatic artist with a self-destructive streak; and most recently, Daniel, whose intensity had been both magnetic and ultimately suffocating. What did these men have in common? Power, certainly, not necessarily physical strength, but a kind of psychic power. They possessed qualities Emma had been taught were problematic in men: aggression, dominance, unpredictability. Yet these same qualities had drawn her in repeatedly. Emma wrote in her journal, "Could Jung be right? Am I attracted to these men because they represent disowned parts of myself? The assertiveness I don't express, the anger I suppress, the power I'm afraid to claim." She remembered how her mother had always emphasized being nice and accommodating, how she'd learned to silence her own needs to keep the peace. Perhaps these men represented everything she'd been taught not to be. As night fell, Emma stared at the last line she'd written. What if the dark masculine I'm drawn to isn't about them at all, but about reclaiming parts of myself? In her next session, Emma shared her reflections with Dr. Reeves. Jung believed the animus, a woman's inner masculine, develops through 4 stages, Dr. Reeves explained. It begins as a figure of physical power, evolves into action and initiative, then becomes the word or logos, and finally can become a spiritual guide. But where does the dark masculine fit in? Emma asked. The dark masculine often represents power, assertion and drive that hasn't been integrated in healthy ways, Dr. Reeves replied. For many women, especially those taught to repress these qualities, there's something compelling about men who embody them, even destructively. That evening, Emma attended a work event where she encountered her colleague Marcus. Unlike the men she typically dated, Marcus was thoughtful and measured, yet confident in his decisions. As they discussed a challenging project, Emma noticed how he held his ground without becoming domineering. "You never back down from your vision," she observed. Marcus smiled. "I've learned to trust my instincts while staying open to other perspectives. It took years to find that balance." Walking home, Emma wondered if Marcus represented a more integrated masculine energy, one that embraced power without being consumed by it. She realized she'd always admired this quality in her professional peers, but had never sought it in her romantic partners. Why am I drawn to destructive expressions of power in my personal life when I value balanced power in my professional one? She wrote in her journal that night. What am I really seeking in these shadows? Emma's research led her to Jung's concept of the persona, the social mask we wear, and how it relates to the shadow, those parts of ourselves we hide from the world and often from our own awareness. In her journal, she sketched 2 columns. In one, she listed qualities of her persona: responsible, kind, accommodating, rational. In the other, she tried to identify her shadow qualities: anger, ambition, selfishness, desire for power. The exercise was uncomfortable. Emma had prided herself on being good, on controlling the darker aspects of her nature. But Jung suggested that the more rigidly we identify with our persona, the more autonomous and potentially destructive our shadow becomes. At work the next day, Emma found herself in a tense meeting. A male colleague interrupted her repeatedly, taking credit for her ideas. Normally, she would have remained silent, seething internally, while maintaining her composed exterior. Instead, she heard herself say, "I wasn't finished speaking," as I was explaining before the interruption. The room fell silent. Her colleague looked startled, then nodded respectfully. Later, her friend Sophia commented, "I've never seen you stand up for yourself like that." Emma considered this. "I'm starting to think that maybe I've been too afraid of conflict, of expressing certain parts of myself." "The assertive parts?" Sophia asked. "The powerful parts," Emma replied. "The parts I've been outsourcing to the men I date." Emma's next relationship began unexpectedly. She met Richard at a gallery opening. Intense, charismatic, with the same magnetic quality that had drawn her to others before him. Despite her recent insights, she found herself quickly entangled. Richard embodied many aspects of the dark masculine. He was decisive to the point of domineering, confident to the point of arrogance, passionate to the point of possessiveness. Emma recognized the pattern even as she fell into it. In her therapy sessions, Dr. Reeves introduced another Jungian concept: animus possession. When we haven't integrated our animus, our inner masculine energy, we can become possessed by it, she explained. It can manifest as rigid thinking, cutting remarks, inappropriate assertions of power. Or we project it onto men who embody these qualities, often in unhealthy ways. Emma thought about how she became a different person in relationships with men like Richard, more passive, more accommodating, losing her center while becoming fixated on them. Jung would say you're experiencing a form of possession, Dr. Reeves suggested, not by demons, but by your own unintegrated masculine energy. The relationship with Richard followed the familiar pattern, initial intensity giving way to power struggles and emotional manipulation. But this time, Emma observed herself with new awareness. She noticed how she surrendered her power, how she sought validation through his approval, how she diminished to make space for his expansiveness. "I'm not seeing him," she realized one night. "I'm seeing a projection of my own unowned masculine energy." Emma began exploring Jung's archetypes, universal patterns or models that exist in the collective unconscious. She was particularly drawn to the masculine archetypes: king, warrior, magician, and lover. In her journal, she reflected on how these archetypal energies manifested in the men she'd been attracted to and how they might exist within herself. The warrior, determination, boundary-setting courage. The king, leadership, vision, order. The magician, wisdom, insight, transformation. The lover, passion, connection, aesthetic appreciation. She realized the men she dated often embodied these archetypes in their shadow forms. The warrior became the abuser, the king became the tyrant, the magician became the manipulator, and the lover became the addict. Emma discussed this with Dr. Reeves, who nodded thoughtfully. Jung believed we all contain these archetypal energies, regardless of gender, she explained. The question becomes, are you trying to access these energies through relationships with men who embody them, rather than developing them within yourself? This perspective shifted something profound for Emma. She began to see her attraction to the dark masculine not as a weakness or pathology, but as a misguided attempt to connect with powers she needed to develop within herself. As her relationship with Richard deteriorated, Emma found herself less devastated than she would have been in the past. She was beginning to understand the psychological dynamics at play and to see possibilities beyond them. After ending things with Richard, Emma immersed herself in understanding Jung's concept of the anima and animus, the feminine element in men and the masculine element in women. Jung believed that forming a relationship with one's anima or animus was essential to psychological wholeness. For women, integrating the animus meant developing qualities traditionally associated with masculinity: logical thinking, assertiveness, independence, courage. Emma began to see how her attraction to the dark masculine reflected her own need to develop these qualities, how she had been seeking externally what needed to be cultivated internally. At a conference, she reconnected with Marcus, the colleague who had impressed her with his balanced strength. Their conversation turned personal over dinner. "My last relationship was a disaster," Marcus admitted. "I was with someone who needed me to be the strong one all the time. It was exhausting trying to live up to that image." Emma nodded. "I've been on the other side of that dynamic. I'm starting to see how unhealthy it is, expecting someone else to embody qualities I need to develop in myself." Jung would approve of that insight, Marcus smiled. He'd studied psychology before switching to architecture. "You know Jung?" Emma asked, surprised. "His ideas about integration have influenced my approach to design, finding harmony between opposing elements." Marcus paused. "And my approach to myself, too. I spent years trying to suppress my sensitivity because I thought it made me less of a man." Emma felt a different kind of attraction forming, not the overwhelming intensity she was accustomed to, but a quieter recognition. Here was someone engaged in his own integration work, someone who might see her complexity rather than just her projections. Emma's journey took an unexpected turn when her father fell ill. As his condition worsened, she found herself taking charge of his care, navigating the healthcare system, making difficult decisions, and advocating fiercely on his behalf. "I hardly recognize you," her mother commented one evening at the hospital. "You've become so forceful." Emma realized she was accessing parts of herself she'd previously disowned, the decisive, assertive, even aggressive qualities she'd relegated to her shadow. In this crisis, these aspects emerged naturally, serving a vital purpose. In her journal, she wrote, "I'm integrating my shadow not by dating it, but by becoming it when necessary. There's power here that I've been afraid to claim." Her sessions with Dr. Reeves focused on this evolution. Jung believed shadow integration is essential for individuation, the process of becoming one's authentic self, Dr. Reeves explained. As we reclaim disowned parts, we become more whole. Emma thought about her father, how his strength had always intimidated her, yet how she'd sought that same strength in her romantic partners. Now she was embodying that strength herself, discovering that it didn't diminish her other qualities, but enhanced them. The dark masculine isn't inherently destructive, she realized. It's only destructive when it's unintegrated, when it operates in the shadows. As her father recovered, Emma noticed a subtle shift in their relationship. He seemed to see her differently, not just as his daughter, but as someone with her own authority and power. And she saw him differently too, recognizing both his strength and vulnerability as parts of a whole person, not just archetypal projections. Emma's growing integration faced its greatest test when she was offered a promotion that would place her in direct competition with a colleague she considered a friend. The position would give her significant creative control and influence, qualities of the king archetype she had been exploring. Her first instinct was to decline, to maintain harmony rather than assert her ambition. But in therapy, she recognized this as her old pattern, disowning her power and then seeking it through relationships with powerful men. "What are you afraid might happen if you claim this power for yourself?" Dr. Reeves asked. Emma considered this. "That I might become like them, like the men who misused their power over me, that I might become the tyrant. Jung would say that's precisely why integration is necessary," Dr. Reeves replied. "When we consciously embrace these energies, we can express them with awareness rather than being controlled by them unconsciously." Emma accepted the promotion. The transition was challenging. She encountered resistance, including from herself. There were moments when she felt the pull of the inner tyrant, the temptation to use her new authority to dominate rather than lead. In her journal, she documented these struggles. "Today, I felt anger toward Thomas for questioning my decision. I wanted to shut him down completely. Is this what power does, or is this what unexamined power does?" She developed practices to remain conscious: meditation, regular reflection, seeking feedback, and continuing her therapy. Gradually, she learned to embody authority without authoritarianism, to be decisive without being domineering, to lead without needing to control. Her relationship with her team flourished under this balanced approach. She found herself mentoring younger women, helping them recognize and integrate their own power. "You're different from other bosses I've had," one young designer told her. "You're strong without being scary." Emma smiled, recognizing that she was modeling the integrated masculine she had once sought externally. As Emma integrated aspects of the warrior and king archetypes, she began exploring the lover archetype, the energy of connection, passion, and aesthetic appreciation. In its shadow form, this energy could manifest as addiction, obsession, or emotional manipulation. But in its integrated form, it represented depth of feeling, creative inspiration, and authentic intimacy. Her evolving understanding affected her relationship with Marcus, which had been developing slowly. Unlike her previous whirlwind romances, this connection was building gradually on a foundation of mutual respect and genuine knowledge of each other. One evening, discussing their relationship, Marcus expressed concern. "Sometimes I wonder if I'm exciting enough for you," he admitted. "You've talked about these intense relationships in your past." Emma considered this thoughtfully. "I used to mistake intensity for intimacy," she replied. "I was addicted to the drama of the dark masculine, the unpredictability, the emotional extremes. But I'm learning that real connection doesn't require that chaos." She explained her journey of integration, how she was discovering that the qualities she had sought in others were aspects of herself she needed to develop and express. "What we have feels different," she told him. "It's not about projection or possession. It's about seeing and being seen." Their relationship deepened, not through dramatic gestures or power struggles, but through genuine vulnerability and presence. Emma discovered that intimacy was more fulfilling when it wasn't fueled by unconscious projections, when it was between two people committed to their own wholeness. In her journal, she noted, "The integrated lover archetype isn't about losing myself in passion, but about bringing my full self to connection. It's not about being consumed, but about being illuminated." The final archetypal energy Emma explored was the magician, the aspect of the masculine associated with knowledge, insight, and transformation. In its shadow form, this energy could manifest as manipulation, intellectual arrogance, or detachment. In its integrated form, it represented wisdom, perspective, and the ability to transform consciousness. Emma's integration of this energy coincided with a personal project, writing a series of essays about her psychological journey. As she articulated her understanding of Jung's concepts and her own experience, she found herself developing a unique perspective that wove together architectural design, Jungian psychology, and personal transformation. Her writings attracted attention, leading to an invitation to speak at a conference on psychology and creativity. Initially terrified, Emma recognized this as an opportunity to embody the integrated magician archetype, to share knowledge not to manipulate or impress, but to illuminate and transform. In preparing her talk, Architecture of the Psyche, Jung's Archetypes and Creative Integration, Emma realized how far she had come. She was no longer seeking the dark masculine externally, but was integrating these energies consciously within herself. Her presentation was powerful, combining intellectual depth with personal vulnerability, theoretical knowledge with practical wisdom. She spoke about her journey from projection to integration, from seeking power through others to embodying it herself. After the talk, a young woman approached her with tears in her eyes. "Your words articulated something I've felt but couldn't name," she said. "This constant attraction to men who embody qualities I'm afraid to express myself." Emma recognized her younger self in this woman. Jung would say, that's the first step toward integration, recognizing what we're projecting. As she spoke with others who resonated with her message, Emma felt herself embodying the positive magician energy, using knowledge not to elevate herself, but to illuminate paths for others. In their final session, Emma and Dr. Reeves reflected on the journey of the past year. Jung believed individuation, becoming one's authentic self, is the work of a lifetime, Dr. Reeves said. But you've made remarkable progress in integrating aspects of your animus and shadow. Emma nodded. I understand now what Jung meant. About the attraction to the dark masculine. It wasn't about those men at all. It was about parts of myself I needed to reclaim. She shared how her relationships had transformed, not just romantic relationships, but all connections. By integrating qualities she had previously projected onto others, she had become more whole, more authentic, and paradoxically, more capable of genuine intimacy. I used to think power meant domination, she reflected. Now I understand it as integration, bringing all parts of myself into consciousness and choice. Dr. Reeves smiled. That's perhaps Jung's most profound insight, that wholeness doesn't mean perfection. It means embracing our full humanity, including the shadows. As Emma left the office, she felt a sense of completion, though she knew her journey of integration would continue throughout her life. The dark masculine no longer held the same magnetic pull, not because she had rejected it, but because she had incorporated its constructive aspects into her own being. In her final journal entry of this chapter of her life, Emma wrote, Jung revealed that women are drawn to the dark masculine not because they are weak, but because they are seeking wholeness. The attraction itself is a call to integration, to reclaim disowned power, to embody buried strengths, to become fully ourselves. The shadow is not our enemy, but our teacher. And when we learn its lessons, we no longer need to seek it in others. We find it transformed and integrated within ourselves.